Welcome to the Stress Free Dentist Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Block. As always, I want to inspire, entertain, and educate you on the best tools and technologies out there. My goal is to help make your practice and career more profitable, efficient, and most importantly, more enjoyable. And check out all of my nonfiction and children's books on Amazon. And check out the stressfreedentist.com for any upcoming events. And if you're feeling you're a dental professional that's burnt out, or you just feel stuck or want to get to that next level, visit the International Academy of Dental Life Coaches, or www.iadlc.com, and we'll get you matched up with a life coach that understands dentistry. I also wanted to thank our amazing sponsor, Equa Marketing. They have helped me and my practice over the years to improve with SEO and website performance. And to find out how you can make your practice dominate in your area, go to www.equa.com/MSMSFD to book your complimentary meeting. Again, that's www.ekwa.com/MSMSFD. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode. And I am joined by Dr. Sima Yakoby Epstein. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. We actually just met very recently at the Greater New York meeting, and I just wanted to hear all about your story about uh, dentistry, and then all about your new company, OrthoNu, that you're the CEO and founder of. But first, let's find out where you're zooming in from today.
So I'm zooming in from Rumson, New Jersey. Many of you probably know Rumson from Bruce Springsteen or Bon Jovi. They frequent the beaches here. So it's a really fun town. Lots of fun in the summer. A lot of people from New York City come down. It's like the Hamptons of New Jersey, I would say.
And is that where you're from?
Originally, I am from Queens, New York, and then I went to school at UPenn for dental school. Then I came back to New York for a residency at Queens, New York Presbyterian. And then I went back to working as a cosmetic dentist, taught at NYU for advanced facial aesthetic dentistry. And then I went back to UPenn for orthodontic school, and then lived in Philly for over 8 years, came back to New York City, worked with Dr. Salzer and Lemshin for over 8 years, and then moved to Rumson. And this is my place of residence for the last 13 years.
Okay. Wow. I want to back up a little, and it's quite the journey. But first, how did you first get involved with dentistry, or decide that dentistry was a career for you?
It was a definitely a car accident when I was 13 years old. It was such a significant traumatic event in my life that it led me to be visiting the dentist's office, at least once a week for multiple years throughout my teenage and adulthood life. And there was one particular doctor that was an orthodontist that had a significant impact on my self-esteem. And I remember the way that he made me feel and made me believe in myself and think that something great would come from all of the trauma that had happened to me. And so I always kept that in my pocket and said one day I would like to be that type of doctor, to be able to give, patients this compassion that I was given at such a tremendous age, where everything was really important, and turning points in my life that I thought was very invaluable at the time.
Wow. So it was a car accident, and how long did the whole process take before you were feeling, good, and you had your smile back?
Oh, it took a couple of years and then it hasn't stopped. I mean, I'm still a patient and a forever patient. We can get into the science of dentistry, but it's never ending. It's always important to keep up, especially with such a traumatic experience. There's many things that happen in your mouth that you have to keep up with, and you kind of go through all of the specialties of dentistry, um, which is kind of funny, but I know it well.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, imagine at 13, it's tough being a 13-year-old as it is, but to have something like that happen, that's quite the story. Um, my journey in dentistry was just a mini beer bottle accident. I broke my number 9 on a beer bottle in college, and I went to the dentist the next day, in Metairie, Louisiana, outside Tulane, and I like the way they patched me up. Not quite as, as traumatic as yours, but that's
Yeah.
how I ended up in dentistry. And
Oh,
so from there, after dental school, did you say you did a residency and then went into cosmetic dentistry?
yeah, so I did a residency at New York Presbyterian, and I thought I was going to do oral surgery because I was really good at taking out teeth, taking out the third molars. And I was also very interested in surgery and, all the things that kind of came with that. And then I quickly switched gears and worked as a cosmetic dentist on Fifth Avenue. And as I said, I taught at NYU for advanced facial aesthetic dentistry. And then I quickly realized that I wanted to do something even more sort of valuable to me as a mom, as a woman, and so I went back to school for orthodontics. Yes.
What was it like being a cosmetic dentist on Fifth Avenue in New York? I imagine that's got to be, a stressful environment, or did you thrive on that?
It was only stressful because I think like any doctor or any dentist, you always want to be able to make the patient feel like, their smile is perfect and they're happy when they leave your office. And sometimes you get into a lot of people that sort of maybe aren't happy with other things in their life. And so that translates into little things that they find, and that becomes sort of, their pain point, right? And so for me, I was very compassionate and I was able to solve for that, but it almost was cosmetic dentistry plus therapy, which I think all dentists kind of see in their own worlds. But I loved it. I thought it was great. I met a tremendous amount of people that were famous and musicians and artists and actresses. And I mean, it was very cool experience, but it just wasn't something that I found as deep as I thought I would. And so therefore I switched gears to orthodontics because I felt that that was more strategic, that was more thoughtful. There was a lot more innovation involved in how we were going to get from A to E in a way that was beneficial for the patient. And I thought that that was kind of an interesting way to work, an interesting way to do things for people.
Now, speaking of, you mentioned the word innovation. You're the founder and CEO of OrthoNu. Can you tell me all about the genesis of OrthoNu?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little things that I think being an orthodontist in the city over time, I listened to my patients about what they would complain most about. And it was really something that they felt when they left the office. They were very unsure of the inevitable emergencies or things that could potentially happen while in braces or aligners. And so when COVID happened, my husband's an orthodontist, my father-in-law is an orthodontist. And so between us, we were helping so many people, parents, children, just so stressed out, feeling so vulnerable and helpless, not being able to get to their dentist, but more so not really understanding that they had no power over their treatment, right? That they were dependent on somebody. And then sometimes, whether it's just the simplest of coming out of school or, missing sports or a parent missing work, it was a stressful environment to be surrounded by for those 2 3 years. And I said, you know what, there's got to be something better than a toenail clipper and a plier. Like, we as prestigious orthodontists can do better, and I'm going to make that happen. I never want anybody to ever feel vulnerable like that and feel helpless. And it kind of reminded me of the way I felt when I was in that car accident and how I had no idea what to expect, and neither did my immigrant parents. So I think that's what drove me to start drawing tweaks for braces, tweaks for aligners, and then a whole line of products that I thought would be beneficial that had never been done before. And that's when Overdrive kicked in. And I read every single research article for the next 2 3 years, just been reading and putting things together and creating products that were based on science and research that will make a difference for those pain points.
Is that actually what a lot of orthodontists recommend is toenail clippers or pliers?
Oh, yeah, that is the standard of care. That you have an emergency and you are unable to come to the office, or you're traveling and you're somewhere and it's after hours. They will tell you if the wire's really poking you and there's no way to bring it back in, that they will ask you to grab a toenail clipper or a plier to be able to cut that wire. Now, you can just imagine how frightening that could be, because on the way into that wire, you have a lot of soft tissue that you might be able to cut off or to nick. And certainly the hygiene of that is just, I mean, really just not hygienic at all. The amount of bacteria that you're exposing into your body and traveling into your system is just not necessary. And it's just not the right tool. Like, toenail clippers are meant to cut nails, they're not meant to cut stainless steel and nickel titanium wires. So why are we offering that as a standard of care? And so that's really sort of high level where I said we can do better. Like, I'm going to create something that's meant to cut nickel titanium wires and stainless steel wires, and that's it, nothing else. They can't do anything else with that except for that, and they can cut it and they can hold it for safety. And that's really what was important to me, is the safety and the efficacy of creating a product that patients and parents could use, knowing well that the orthodontists are completely validating and promoting these products, which was extremely important on both ends.
I imagine, someone that has like a toenail fungus and they're taking the same clipper into their mouth is probably not, a good scenario, but um, good for you for seeing a pain point or a problem out there and trying to solve it. What was kind of the next step there from that idea you had? You said there was a couple years of research.
Mhm.
How did you go from that idea to actually having an MVP or a prototype product?
Sure. So, being that I was a patient and an orthodontist, I really delved deep into focusing on what was needed and what was the standard of care. So, like Tweaks for Braces is my first hero product, I realized that we needed certain tools on this Swiss Army kind of tool, right? All the emergencies that we knew from data, from research. What are the main things that people can't handle that they can do at home, that they don't have to come into the office for? So that was kind of where Tweaks for Braces came about. And the same thing for the aligner wearers. Like, why are they sticking their fingers in their mouth? Why are you having adults try to put rubber bands on when they can't even reach their back molar? Like, why are we using grandma's emery boards to like file something that's irritating us on our aligner? So I kind of put all the pieces together from a patient's perspective and an orthodontist perspective. And then I started looking at manufacturers. So at first I was having a healthy paranoia, like I can't really go to like Q3D or Benko or 3M or any of these manufacturers to be able to make it, because I was a little bit nervous about, well, what if they are able to take it on and just make it for themselves? And so we had a lot of patents being put in, so utility and design patents. So I spent the first year just making sure all the patents were initiated and started those patents pending. And then I tried to look for different manufacturers. There was a lot of work in making sure we found the right one. And then finally, we landed on the Hugh Freedy Group, and they're wonderful, and they make the best distal end cutters in the world. So um, that was a really exciting process to be able to see, the quality. And the quality for me is always the most important, because especially, the first product in the OrthoNu pipeline, it sets the standard and the stage for what's to come. And having it be the highest quality and finding the best manufacturer was pivotal.
So you have a product for traditional braces and also aligners, correct?
Yes, so it's called Tweaks for Braces and Tweaks for Aligners, and they're both 4-in-1 tools that help with 95% of the emergencies that any patient that's in braces or aligners faces throughout their 2-3 years of treatment.
How often would you say that an orthodontist or a dentist that's doing a lot of braces or clear aligners will have one of these issues pop up in a day or a week?
Yeah, so great question. So according to Gauge data over the last 12 years, we know that there's 8 to 10 emergency visits per day in every single office. 95% of those are broken brackets and broken wires. And most of the aligner emergencies, they're not really emergencies, but why people come into the office is that they have an aligner that's irritating them, and they need to have it, smoothed out for them at the doctor's office, or the aligner wear is, it's very retentive because they have so many attachments, and it's very challenging for them to continue to remove the aligner without distorted plastic pieces. So on average, you would have about, 2 to 5 emergencies per patient. in the braces for orthodontists, and probably around 2 for the aligner ones. And for the dentist, it's different, right? So the dentists that are doing ortho, it's a different understanding because they have other specialties that they're doing within the practice. So those emergencies, I don't have the numbers for those, but I imagine that 37% of orthodontists are general dentists, and they're doing clear aligners or braces. And so they probably have a similar amount, but on a smaller scale. And what they do with those emergencies is probably more challenging because they're also dealing with emergencies for root canals and for cavities and for, other items. So I feel like that's probably even more challenging for them.
Yeah, and it's chair time. The
That's
patient,
all.
it's inconvenient for the patient, it's inconvenient for the dentist.
Mhm.
The dentist has to, or the orthodontist has to get the room ready and turn over the room. And it's if the, you know, patient can do this on their own at their own home, that's win-win for everyone, it sounds like.
Absolutely. It's a big win-win, not only for the patient experience, but also for the orthodontist or the dentist proficiency in the office. So if you are dedicating 3 o'clock and after to 8 to 10 emergencies a day, you are now clearing up that schedule for scheduled visits or more new patient starts, and you're being able to handle the emergency at home, for example, which would have been maybe an extended period of chair time, which eats up to the rest of the schedule in that afternoon. So it's more about being efficient, proficient, and also we have some charts and some numbers that we did, but essentially you're actually increase your revenue because if you know that every time a patient sits in your chair, it's $100 to $300, no matter what. Now you're eliminating those excess numbers. You're actually saving on the long term per year by eliminating those emergency visits per day. So if you took a medium-sized practice that sorted 2 to 300 patients per year, you're getting at least one emergency a day per month. You're saving over $100,000 in revenue. And the numbers are obviously hard to understand, but if you go into our website, there's an ROI calculator, return on investment calculator, that allows you to put in the amount of starts that you see and what the savings would be given the elimination or the ability to have the emergencies be handled at home and then scheduled for your next visit. Which is a much better way and a more efficient way for doctors and patients to carry on their treatment.
Yeah, and imagine a dentist or an orthodontist can just look at their schedule from the week before and see how many emergencies came in the door, and they could just easily create a number there, and figure out how much time that would have saved them. Now, how does the patient kind of do the self-care treatment? Do you have videos that you show them or send them links of?
Yeah, so the patient onboarding is quite simple. The orthodontist essentially gives it out to each new patient start. And at that visit, when they're explaining, oral hygiene and how to brush and floss, they're also showing them a prototype in their or a tweaks in their office that they have outside the box. And they're going to say, in your goodie bag is a tweaks for braces or tweaks for aligners. You're going to use this tool when you have a broken bracket or a broken wire. And here's quickly what it looks like. There's QR codes on the back of the box. There's YouTube videos and multiple how to use videos on the website so that it's really simple. It's really user friendly. And so there's a lot of support for patients and for doctors to continue that to make sure the patient feels comfortable.
All right, I want to wrap up. I usually wrap up with two final questions, but for you, I want to wrap up with three questions.
Okay.
So the first one is, and I can repeat these. The first one is, how do we find out more about OrthoNu or about tweaks? And questions two and three are similar questions, but what advice would you give to a young dental professional? And what advice would you give to a young entrepreneur? Because you're both of those. You're a dental professional and an entrepreneur.
Yeah, all great questions. I'm happy to answer. So the first one is www.orthonu.com, OrthoN as in Nancy, U as in up.com. And there you'll find a little bit of information about me and my journey, some of the articles and magazines that we've been in, and the sort of momentum that we're carrying this year in the industry. We have more products coming out in Q1, Q2. So I would love for you guys to take a look at that. And then as far as my advice for a young dentist, I would say the specialty piece is very important. As you could tell from my story, I thought I was going to do oral surgery. Then I became a cosmetic dentist, and then I was an orthodontist. So I think, that journey is very different for everyone, and also based on where you are in your life. So the one thing I would say is that just make sure when you are specializing, or if you decide to specialize, you kind of be like a chess master, like a grandmaster, and think 12 steps ahead, right? Like, what kind of family do I want? What does it look like in 5 years? Where am I living? What kind of lifestyle do I want? And those are really important questions that sometimes we don't answer for ourselves till after the fact. And those are sometimes the reasons why we maybe navigate and pivot, as I did. So I think just be a grandmaster chess player, always 12 steps ahead. As far as the entrepreneur, what advice would I give to a young entrepreneur? I would say organization is the key to success. Reading this book that I read that I think changed the way I thought about business is Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Ben-David. I think understanding what the world is, from switching to being a dentist or an orthodontist to being a CEO of a company, is very different, for all the reasons that you can probably understand intuitively. But more so, my advice would be just to prepare yourself for the different sets of talents that you will need or is required of you as an entrepreneur, and to be able to forecast again what would that look like for you, or what your expectations are. Like, do you want to be an intrapreneur, an entrepreneur? Do you want to work for a bigger company? Do you want to, sell your company in 5 years? Like, there's so many questions that an entrepreneur needs to know before they even start, to be able to get them on the right path. And I think my advice is always to get yourself on the right path, and then maintain super, super fine focus. And once you pivot, which you will many times, just figure out a way to solve the problem quickly and get back on your path. So yeah, I would say those are my little 2 cents.
Oh, that's great stuff. I've read that book too. Your Next 5 Moves. That's a great book. Excellent interview. So many great nuggets. Dr. Sima Yakoby Epstein, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be on. Happy holidays to all of you.
Thanks again for listening to the Stress Free Dentist podcast. And don't hesitate to get in touch with me at info@thestressfreedentist.com. And if you haven't already, please subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Until the next episode, I'm Dr. Eric Block, the Stress Free Dentist.